Welcome back to the Citizen channel, and this part two of a two-part feature on City imports. And we're looking at a gentleman who, as I'm recording this, has obviously come to the fore again because of his son, obviously signing for Manchester City, or been confirmed signed for Manchester City. It's been not dragging on, but it's been a poorly kept secret. Let's be honest about it. But we're going to look at part two of Alfie Haaland, or Haaland, please forgive me, I'm not too sure, I get told one thing or the other, but we're going to have a look at Alfie today. We're going to continue our look at Alfie in this part two of City imports. Please, if you're new to the channel, push that subscribe button, be great if you can do that for me if you've not already done so, and if you have done so, keep spreading the word. Over 2,000 subscribers now. My appreciation to you all thanks for your support, and please, any thumbs up you can give always make an old City fan very, very happy. So we ended part one. We're struggling in the league, not doing too well, and with Alfie about to miss his first game of the season. He'd been an ever-present in all cup competitions, all the league games, and this would come at Bradford on March the 17th. Due to a one-game suspension. A bit odd. He'd totted up 5 yellow cards, but he'd played a lot of games, and obviously this was into the March. This was towards getting towards the tail end of the season. So a combative player, which Alfie was. This was quite low for five bookings to be suddenly banned for a game, but hey, that's how the tossing up procedure was. But of course, he'd missed this game, and as far as the match concerned, Bradford was struggling. They were below us at the stage. They were the only team, but they were the only team below us, and they were losing contact with the teams above, even ourselves, and they were in bottom place. But we could only manage a 2-2 draw in that one at Bradford. But with games running out, of course, we were finding it nigh impossible to get out of the bottom three. We'd been second bottom, then we'd gone third bottom, but it was becoming so hard to get out of that bottom three. And possibly a visit to runaway leaders United at Old Trafford with the writing on the wall as far as City are concerned, and relegation sort of looking like an abyss in front of us. Of course, we had to visit runaway leaders United at Old Trafford. And of course, possibly this will become the defining moment in Alfie's time at City. And of course, repercussions will persist even into the future. A hard-fought 1-1 draw at Old Trafford was remembered more, of course, for the confrontation, which we still see images of him now. There's a great image there on the King of the Kipbacks at the time of the confrontation with that thug. I'll call him a thug because that's what he is, even though obviously when I listen to his commentary on games at the moment, he talks some sense and he has passion. But as far as this was concerned, it was a thuggish what he did, simple as that. A thug in Roy Keane. And Keane still harboured a grudge that when in a match against Leeds about 3 seasons earlier, Alfie had stood over Keane and remonstrated with him about feigning injury. As it turned out, Keane wasn't injured. He was actually he was out of football for almost 12 months. But obviously, Alfie had sort of thought he'd done that deliberately. And of course, Keane wouldn't let this go. He hadn't forgotten this. And Alfie himself was booked at the time for this remonstration with Keane. But obviously, this guy holds a grudge, and this is where it all stemmed from. Alfie himself had actually said publicly that he didn't like United. I think it all started at Leeds, who never like ourselves, don't have a very nice relationship with United. And of course, his dislike of United was on record. And perhaps this, and of course that earlier incident with Roy Keane, perhaps Roy Keane wanted to get his retaliation in first for these incidents. And sadly for Alfie, it would never be the same again, although it wasn't the actual injury that he took in this game that would put him out eventually. Obviously, it was a totally different leg to what he'd injured. Keane was rightly sent off for what Joe Royle said at the time was as bad a foul as I've ever seen in a long time. Alfie himself said he was only glad that my leg was off the ground, otherwise he would have done me a lot of damage. But little did he know at that stage just what damage he'd had done anyway to his physique, not just the leg Roy Keane injured, of course. Ironically, Alfie had been playing with a little bit of strapping. He sort of was having problems. He admitted this after the event up to this game, and the injury to his other knee was on his other knee, rather to the thigh that Roy Keane had actually damaged in this game. Alfie, though, started the next game. So even though obviously there were problems, he started the next game against West Ham, a 1-0 win, which was very welcome. But that was just postponing the inevitable relegation. He had to come off in that game as well, but not seen anywhere near the first team after this until the December of the next season. So things were bad. But as I said, not particularly to do with the Keane thing. It was obviously just an ongoing injury that had just been getting worse and worse. That summer, he underwent surgery on his left knee, and he would, of course, lose the captaincy as he bound to, because there's no chance of seeing him. But the arrival of a certain Stuart Pearce would give us an ideal candidate for that anyway. But there's still optimism, a lot of optimism that he would come back. So sadly, this turned out to be a little bit misplaced. They had a feature in the Manchester City programmes at the time that was put together, and it was just the physio commentating about injuries. So he was always fairly positive if Alfie got a mention. Of course, we changed managers. We had a different manager under Kevin Keegan. City, of course, would bounce back to the Premier League at the first time of asking. But what about Alfie? What was his contribution during this season? Very little. He'd had 2 cartilage operations on his knee, and he was back in light training on the 18th of September. On the 3rd of October, Alfie started the reserve game against United in the Manchester Senior Cup in a 5-0 win. But sadly, by his birthday on the 29th of October, after this game, he suffered a big setback and he had really bad swelling, a bad reaction on his knee, and all thoughts of a quick return suddenly evaporated. But finally, earlier than expected, again, perhaps too soon, I'm not too sure, but earlier than expected, Alfie was back for the reserves on the 5th of December, and then in a home league game against Bradford, the 3-1 win on the 16th of December, he replaced Dixon Atuhu on 75 minutes to a great welcome, of course, from us, the fans, in a 30,000 crowd at Main Road on the night. He even managed a couple of crunching tackles, seemed to come through him okay. He said on his return, 8 months as a spectator has been very frustrating, especially as I had never really missed a significant number of games with an injury before. It was a new and unpleasant experience. He went on, the season started badly for me personally, but there's every chance of a happy ending to it in April. Well, certainly was for City, but perhaps not Alfie himself. He again came on the Boxing Day game at home to West Bromwich Albion, replacing Steve Howie on 74 minutes. City sat second at that stage behind Burnley. Burnley were up next, in fact, and he was an unused sub in the top of the table clash as City thrashed Burnley 5-1. And on New Year's Day, in a 3-1 win at Sheffield United in front of over 5,000 travelling fans at Bramall Lane, he was an 83rd minute sub for Eyal Berkovic. Unknown to City fans, they would actually see the last of him in an FA Cup third-round tie at Main Road on the 5th of January, a 2-0 win over Swindon Town, when he again replaced Berkovic on 77 minutes. But that was it. Things weren't right. City sent Alfie over to Cleveland in the USA to try and sort this out, to a guy who'd done repairs on American footballers, as in their pro football, not our sort of football. And they'd worked apparently successfully on Paulo Wanchope, but Paulo Wanchope was having problems as well on his return from this medical. So whether he was that, whether he could do it or not, perhaps it was all bluster. I'm not too sure. But he also Wanchope had continued to have problems, and of course Alfie did as well. And his season was over. That was it. We never saw him again after those Christmas and New Year appearances. An optimistic Alfie was back in pre-season training for the 02-03 season. And of course, he was pictured in the team lineup for that season. But in a regular column, as I said, they had a regular column, this physio column. It still appeared in the 2002-2003 season. But all of a sudden, Alfie wasn't being mentioned of any sort of comeback. He actually got mentioned in one column by name, but then no comment was made as to how he was progressing or what he was doing. So it was all very quiet and ominous, of course, and it all ended, the season all ended without him being able to make any sort of return whatsoever. Fallout from the Keane incident, just going back to that. In his autobiography, of course, Keane stated that the tackle was a premeditated, deliberate act of vengeance against Haaland for on-field criticism received from him 3.5 years previously. After this revelation, Keane found himself subject to an FA inquiry. He did claim inaccurate paraphrasing from his ghostwriter. He probably couldn't have written it himself, but received an additional 5-game ban and a £150,000 fine for bringing the sport into disrepute. Alfie and City stated they were considering taking legal action against Keane. However, as I said earlier, it emerged that Alfie had stated on the personal website he'd been playing with an injury to his left knee a few months, so it held him back, and that his left leg did not receive a knock in the game. Keane actually kicked his right thigh, and that Keane did not cause his long-term injury. So, of course, as you'd expect, on that basis, legal action was dropped in February 2003, and after the club had reviewed this medical advice. Alfie sadly and finally retired in July 2003, still with a couple of years on his contract, but obviously there was a written notes in it that said if obviously any injury, he could actually have his contract terminated. But not any bad feelings. There's no particular bad feelings at the time between City and Alfie. He commented at the time, City have been very supportive throughout my time with the club, and I would particularly like to thank Kevin Keegan and the physio team for their dedication. Kevin Keegan said he was sorry to lose the former Norwegian international. I know I'll be joined by all City fans, he said, and everyone at the club in wishing Alfie all the luck in the world. He certainly deserves some luck after what has happened to him. It was always a great shame when any footballer is forced to retire at an early age through injury, and no one could have shown more dedication and commitment to regain his fitness than Alfie. I wish him all the very best for the future. He did, of course, attempt to play again in Norway in 2011-2013 for a lower level standard of football, but only managed a handful of games, so it wasn't to be. Total appearances for City, he made 35 starts for City, 3 as a substitute, and scored 3 goals. In the FA Cup, he made 3 starts and 1 as sub, and he made 5 appearances in the League Cup. So despite that limited number of appearances and the disastrous injury, Alfie never left us in any doubt, I don't think, while he was with us, of his commitment for City. And as fans, despite these problems, we'll always be fondly remembered, and we always stuck up for him, always grateful when he could make an appearance. And his 100% performances and leadership, will always be remembered by us, I think, for all the fans who saw him. There's no doubt Joe Royle viewed him as essential to the team, and Kevin Keegan would have loved to have him as well in that position, that sort of utility role, if you like. And of course, an injury-free Haaland, I think, would have been a stalwart, an ever-present for City over those 4 or 5 years, whichever length of time he stayed at our place. We were cruelly robbed of 5 years of one of Alfie's skills. It's such a shame, anyway, it might mean older Alfie will also be back amongst us now. His son's back with us, so that's a good thing, isn't it? And now we've got his son on board. It'd be great to see Alfie in and around the place again. So thanks for joining me, guys, for this little Alfie feature on City imports. Let me know any memories you've got. Have you chatted to the guy? Have you seen him? It'd be great to hear from you. Let me know your memories of our City import. And great, committed player, even though, as I said, only 30 odd games, but it just felt more like that. It certainly felt more like that to the guys who were around at the time, the fans who appreciated what he did at the time. Thanks for watching. Please, until we meet again, that's one thing, don't I? Please, you and your family, stay safe, Blues. Come on, City. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.